Pastors Corey and Melissa Inslee right here at the Exchange Worship Center, and we are so honored that you chose to tune in and watch us live. And get out your Bibles, your notebooks, follow along with the message, and we pray that it's a blessing to you this morning. We'll see you right after this message.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining us here at EWC Live. We're so excited that you're joining us here tonight. This is our In Search of the Truth Bible study, and we're just so excited that you joined us. We're in Genesis, the book of Genesis. As you know, this series is an ongoing series. It's going to continue. Even when this whole corona thing comes to an end and we're able to come back together, we're still going to be doing this on Wednesdays. We're still going to be having guest discussion coming in and different people, and I just love this format. I think it's working great, and we're continuing that here tonight. I do want to let you know, give you the information about how you can still give if you don't know that already. Maybe if you're tuning in later, if you've watching the archived version of this, you can still give to the EWC your tithes, your offerings, and we still have a ministry to put on here. We still have bills to pay. We still got to keep the lights on. Even though we're not here, even though you're not enjoying the comfort of the building, we still have things we got to take care of, and so that's where the obedience to the Word of God comes in. So right below me, you'll see the number where you can text to give. We've actually had a couple of people bring some offering to me, and that was so sweet of them and amazing. But if you are inclined to do text to give, the number is right below me. It's 361-336-0500, and what you'll do is text to that number. You'll text your dollar amount right in there, just like you're texting a friend. If it's your first time, you'll have to fill out a little information, but then you'll never have to do it again. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for supporting us and being obedient to the Word of God. And as you're obedient, God is obedient to His Word. And it says that as you give, it'll be given back to you. And so thank you so much for doing that right at this moment. I do want to introduce you to our special guests tonight, as we've had some guests in the past. We've had Brother Johnny Ray, we've had Pastor Melissa, and tonight we have one of our very own elders in the house, Elder Ruben Pena Jr., and he is one of the elders here at the EWC. Very good friend of mine, known him for
20 plus years.
20 plus years, something like that. He was actually in my youth ministry. He was part of my youth ministry, and of course he's all grown up now and has a family.
Flies.
Yes, we're both getting old, and somehow, I don't know how, but he's catching up to me. No, age-wise. So, but no, he's got his own family now, some beautiful kids, and a beautiful wife, and they just have a wonderful life. And so he's one of my elders here, and I love him dearly. He's one of my best friends. And so thank you for joining me here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Being part of the lineup.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to be talking about Genesis 4 here tonight. Let me give some shout-outs real quick. We got Miss Leo watching. Thank you, Miss Leo. Miss Elsie is on with us. Let's see. Your wife's watching. Miss Christie's watching. Dora is watching. Joe and Julie. Joe Lancaster and Julie Marians. Julie's our worship leader. She says, hey, everyone. Dora says hello and hi. And let's see, who else we got? Juan's watching. He's back in the sound booth. He's watching. And Miss Adeline, gracias. So good to see you, ma'am. Love you dearly. Love your whole family. But thank you all for tuning in. But we're going to get right into this. Chapter 4 of Genesis. And this is, what's going on here is we've been through the creation in chapter 1, and then we kind of stepped into the creation of humans, of man and woman, and we went through that. And now, and then we went through the garden. We got out of the garden, didn't want to get out of the garden, but Adam and Eve screwed up. And so, but we talked about last week how getting them out of the garden wasn't a punishment. It was protection. It's a big difference. Punishment came because punishment will always come when you go against the will of God. There's always circumstances.
Absolutely.
And so, but the garden, leaving the garden wasn't punishment, it was protection. because God said, I can't leave them in their sin. What if they eat from the tree of life? They'll live forever in their sin, and that was not God's way of doing it. And so now we're out of the garden, okay? Adam and Eve have been, there's basically a flaming sword that's protecting the front. They can't go in, which always amazes me, Ruben, because I can always imagine them looking back at what they used to have. You know, you ever think about that? Looking back at what we used to have, and I think that's something we all go through. I don't know if you've ever gone through that, where you've taken a wrong turn, and you look back and you say, you know, what if I would have?
Absolutely.
You know, and so I can imagine them telling their kids, you know, hey kids, this is where we used to live.
Absolutely, but I've had that experience, and then beyond that experience, I can think of one particular thing that, for everybody's protection, I won't talk about, other than what I learned through it.
Yeah.
But I remember going through it and looking back and saying, man, I remember what I had. Oh my gosh, did I make that? Was that just such a poor decision? You know, and at the time it looked like such a poor decision. It looked like it threw me and my family out of line. And then fast forward a few more years, and I look back and I think, wow, man, that was so bad for me at that time.
Yeah.
But look at the protection and the blessing that's come forth because of what I learned through it.
That's good.
God allowed me to go through something to be able to be where I'm at today.
That's very good. And I think that's a valid point, because as we read through this message, we're going to see that even though they had to leave paradise, God still had their hand upon them. And He was still with them. They still had the opportunity to be successful, even though they weren't where they used to be. And so we can all look at that in the sense of God always has His hand of protection upon us. God always, here's a word for you, God always wants the best for you.
Right.
And so this is where we see Adam and Eve at the moment. In verse 1 through 2, I kind of have this categorized here in my notes, but chapter 4, verse 1 and 2, we'll kind of read through a little bit. It says, now Adam had sexual relations with his wife. In the KJV, King James Version, it says he knew his wife. Okay, that doesn't mean that's when they first met. That's a biblical term for it was their honeymoon. And so he went and had relations with it. Now, whether or not this happened prior to the garden, we don't know. Okay, we don't know. This is just where it's picking up. And so they had relations with Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, with the Lord's help, I have produced. And I read that, and so I automatically go back to how she was punished for her part in this, and God said, you will have childbirth pain. And so with the Lord's help,
yeah, she got through it.
I was able to get through this. It's like my wife, when she had our son, she could care less if I was in the room. It was the one that gave her, what's that stuff called? Epidural. What's his name?
For pain relief.
Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob. She's shouting from the sound booth. Dr. Bob. She don't care if I was there, but Dr. Bob helped her get through it. Okay, and so that's the great thing. And so notice Eve didn't give any acclamation to Adam at all. He said,
God's help.
The Lord's help.
Yeah.
I have produced a man. Okay. Later, she gave birth to his brother, and named him Abel. Now, something interesting here is that normally they were going to more description when a child is born, but they just said later. So there's a common thought that Cain and Abel were twins, that he came out a little later. And so that doesn't say it. Some people believe that. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. And so here we have, after them leaving paradise, we see Adam and Eve, they start to begin a family. Now, for now, all we hear about is Cain and Abel, and it's thought that they might be twins, as I said. The Bible seems to skip over their childhood. Okay? It's like a fast forward, a jump forward, but still gives us understanding of their upbringing in the following verses. Okay? So he became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground, or he became a farmer.
Right.
Okay? And so they both also gave of their harvest, because it says that they gave. It says that when the time of harvest. So that's basically talking about how they gave once a year, okay? Because the crops had to grow, the animals had to grow, and so we have this time of giving. So from this we can see Adam and Eve taught them how to do a few things. One, work hard. Okay, you're a product of that. You know, your dad taught you to work hard, and supported their individual skill sets, because we see two different people doing two different things. And if it's true that they were twins, they grew up having some sense of individuality of what they enjoyed doing. And so they taught them to work hard, they supported their skill sets, and taught them the importance of giving. This wasn't just something that happened. You have children, and give me their ages. They're how old?
18 months, 4 years, and 6 years.
And 6 years.
And six
okay.
just turned 6.
And so I can guarantee you've already taught them to start giving.
Absolutely.
Because it's become such a staple in your life.
Right.
And so walk me through that, of that young of an age, how you prepare them and teach them, because I can only imagine that's what they had to do with their kids. How do you do that at such a young age?
Well, beyond giving to the Lord, you've got to implement it in their life, giving to each other, giving to one another. Yeah. And in our home, hey, you know, our oldest is named Amelia, and my boy's named Trace. He's named after me. We call him Trace, and then we have Camila. And Amelia, being the oldest, immediately, she's very quick, and she picks up on things, and she's very giving, and she'll give to Trace, and she'll make sure that he's okay, and she'll give to guests when they're there, and she'll give to friends when they come over, or whatever the case is, and Trace as well. But you have to instill that in them at that point to give freely to anybody and everybody, you know, when you have that unction. And then, you know, there's daddy tax too. You got a daddy tax.
Yeah, of course.
And then, you know, in reference to the church and in reference to giving, we will give them something for them to go, you know, place in the offering plate or whatever the case is. Yeah. And then we, you know, tell them, hey, we're giving of our 10%, or we're praying to be a blessing to this person, or we're gonna do this. Obviously, you know, on their level, you know, we're not, hey, if a family's in need, we're doing this because of this. They don't grasp all that kind of stuff. Right. But you've got to give them that information. You've got to plant that seed, if you will, within them so that they can walk it out.
Which goes to that scripture which I've referenced so many times, to train up a child.
Right.
To train up a child. Train doesn't mean smack on the nose like a dog with a newspaper. Train means to actually
lead by example.
Lead by example, to initiate. To initiate. And so we can't, as parents, just tell our kids, you're going to do this, while you do the opposite. And so not only are you training them by teaching them to give to everybody and God, but they're watching you. You know, they're seeing y'all do what you do. And so I believe that's what Adam and Eve did, because that's what God did with them back in the garden. And we touched on that last week with Johnny Ray about how, you know, when they sinned, God didn't go smack them over the nose. What did he do? He went in and taught them something.
Right.
He taught them how to sacrifice. That's where the whole killing of the animal came in, to make them clothing. He wasn't out just being a clothing designer. He was teaching them.
Exactly.
It was an intimate time. It wasn't a time of banishment and time of scolding. It was a time of love and teaching and instruction of, when you come across this situation again, and you will, and when you need to be a blessing, whatever. We don't know the fullness of what he taught them in that moment, but he took time as a loving parent to sit down and teach them something so they could toss it off to their kids too.
Absolutely.
And say, look, this is how we do things.
Right, and that goes parallel not only with kids, but in the workplace. Like a lot of us, the people that don't have kids, when you get into a position where you're above somebody, not necessarily, oh, I'm better than you, but you're above somebody, with the guys that work with me, they make mistakes all the time, just like I make mistakes. But hey, look, let me show you something. If you do it like this and do it like that, you'll have a better result, and then the customer will be happy. And you're giving of your knowledge and giving of your time, allowing them to give a better service, and beyond. In any workplace, if you know how to do something, you got to offer that knowledge for it.
Definitely. And don't be afraid to learn from somebody that's younger than you.
That's right.
It goes on in the story here, verse 3. When it was time for the harvest, that's where we get the point of they were giving on a yearly basis within this time. Now, whether or not there were sacrifices during the week or the month, it doesn't really say, but it is talking about a specific time. Cain presented some of, and I want y'all to really notice this part. It says, Cain presented some crops to the Lord. Mm-hmm. It's very just basic, some crops. While Abel also brought a gift, the best portions, gotta remember that part, best portions of the firstborn lamb from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel in his gift, but did not accept Cain in his gift. And so I want you to look at two different parts here. One, Cain brought some crops. Abel brought the best crops. Mm-hmm. The Lord did not accept, listen to this the way it's phrased, the Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. See, it's not about only what you're bringing, it's about the heart behind it. And so I've heard people teach this, and if God showed it to them, that's their revelation. I'm not saying anybody's wrong, but when I read this, it kind of goes in a different direction from some teaching I've heard in the past of God was upset with Cain because it wasn't a blood offering.
Right.
But let's dissect this here. Cain can't give what he doesn't have.
That's right.
Cain was a farmer.
Right.
And so what's the old term? You can't get blood out of a turnip.
Right.
So, it's he can only give what he could give. Mm-hmm. I can't give what Ruben gives, and Ruben can't give what I give.
That's right.
Because it's the heart behind it. And so Abel gave from his flock, but he gave the best. Mm-hmm. Cain gave some, which is implied that he gave what was left over.
Right. So, in this revelation, it says, in this version, there you go, that's the right word. It says he brought a gift, and the other brother brought prime gifts. Yeah. And multiple.
So more, not only tithes, but he brought offerings.
Right. And the best.
Yeah,
what's the prime meat, the prime steak. And that's maybe bad terminology because he's talking about meat here versus vegetables, but I'm a meat guy, so when I think prime, I'm thinking the best meat because that's what prime grade A meat.
I'm into salads right now, so I'm cool with that.
I'm sorry. I won't tell you how many pounds of meat I cooked over the weekend.
That's all right. I had chicken fajita on top of the salad. But when I read this is what comes to my mind because of the season, because of the time period here when it says that when the harvest was done. That tells me that Cain consumed what he had, and when it came time, he gave what he had left over.
Right.
What he could not consume.
Right.
And so it was basically tipping God. You're saying here, it gets his broom out and maybe, sweeps up all the excess, the crumbs and everything and brings it before the Lord, and God wasn't pleased with that. And so Hosea 10:12 says this, plant the good seeds of righteousness, and you will harvest the crop of love. Plow up the hard ground of your hearts, for now is the time to seek the Lord, that he may come and shower righteousness upon you. And so what you receive is based on the effort that you put towards it. Is that what you're hearing? Is that what you're seeing? And so through all this, Cain gets ticked because God says, don't want it, don't need it, kind of quoting my dad, but don't. It's not something. It's not pleasing to me, because one, your heart's not in it, and it's not the best. And this is what gets me. We expect expect God to give us the best when all we give him is crumbs.
Right.
You know, and if we expect the best, I mean, the business you're in, you're not a $10 detailer.
No.
You know, you're high end. You do planes. You do, you know.
Absolutely.
Ruben is the founder and owner of Star Detailing, and he is the top premier. And I'm not just saying this because he's an elder in my church, but I'm just saying that he's good at what he does. He's great at what he does. And he's the premier detailer here in the Coastal Bend as far as I'm concerned. And so for the money that you charge, your customers expect the best.
Absolutely, and when we drop the ball, we get told we do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
Right.
we're not
Right.
perfect, and
Yeah.
you know, but we're reminded that exact statement right there.
Yeah.
I pay for premium service, and I expect it.
You know, and God's a premium God.
And he expects it.
He expects it, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, we want excellence. Why shouldn't he expect excellence? And
Absolutely.
So, God is a great God, and we should be his great creation. And, you know, if we're going to be representatives of him, then everywhere we go and everything we do, people should look at us and say, man, there's something about that person.
Yeah.
There's something about that woman. There's something about that guy. And, I need to go find out what it is.
Right.
And so, especially in a time right now, oh, Lord, like we are right now, don't go out in the grocery stores fighting old ladies. You know, let's be generous. Let's be caring.
Right.
Let's be considerate.
Right.
You know, let's have an attitude of love. I was leaving HEB 2 days ago or something like that. I'd go pick some stuff up because we were running low on some stuff. And while I was leaving, praise God, got paper towels and toilet paper. You know, woo, it was a good day. It was a good day. I felt like a hunter. You know, I just wanted to put some blood right there. Just, you know, like, ugh. And so I was leaving, and I just blessed this worker just by my words. And she was just standing there making sure everybody was doing their duty and everybody keeping order and stuff. And I looked at her. I said, thank you for all you're doing. And she said, well, thank you. I said, no, y'all are doing a great job. And you just saw her face light up. You know, she didn't have a face mask on, so I could see, you know, her smile and stuff. And, you know, it's just things like that, just those little things of, you know, having a great attitude. Instead of going up to her and said, you know what, y'all are out of gallons of milk. You know, no, y'all are doing a great job.
Right.
Y'all are doing a great
Absolutely.
job. So everywhere we go, anything we do, we should be representatives of Christ. Cain, not so much. Cain gets angry. He gets upset. And the question is, why? Why does he get upset? Maybe he's jealous of his brother.
Right. Let me
Go
let me
ahead.
step you there and go back a little bit.
Okay, step back.
You talked about the example of where he kind of swept up at the end as far as not giving the the best gift up front.
Yeah.
That's an excellent revelation. But I try and take things and look at current times and look at current, what's happening right now. And there's so many people that will bring a offering, not a tithe, but they'll bring an offering, and they say, if I give to the Lord, He'll give back to me. If I sow seed, I'm going to reap a harvest. If I do this and do that. I read something a couple of days ago, and it said, when we bring our tithe, we're merely giving back what's owed to the Lord.
Yeah.
When we bring our offering, we're giving so that it can be given back.
That's good.
And nowadays, hopefully, a lot of things change because of all that we're experiencing here. And those that are givers, I'm sure, have been taken very well care of and have seen exponential growth and have seen things through this. There's different people that I've talked to through this process, and many who are givers and believers have seen advancement. And many, great blessings, just unreal blessings through it all, when the rest of the world, if you will, the world, is experiencing without and experiencing loss and experiencing, setback. But if you give with a joyful heart and you give with intent and you give with like what we talk about on Sundays, and William and I and pastors brought it up. When you give with this zeal of, Lord, thank you for letting me do this, and I'm doing this because I want to see this prosper.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all this stuff on the backside starts coming in, and you're like, whoa, what happened here?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's right. Yeah, with our own life, I mean, it's no secret, because if you drive by our house, you see a big sign in the yard, But we, right before all this started, we decided to sell our house and get a different house. We're tired of the 2-story living, so we're going to get a 1-story. And when all this started, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is so stupid. We got a stay-at-home order. We got all this going on. And I'm telling you this because we're talking about giving. Because with all this, me and Melissa, we don't stop giving. It's there. It's what we do. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no crunching the numbers to see if we can afford to give. It's what we do. And so we put our house on the market. We have some amazing realtors. Just got to give them a plug, Jeff and Amy Willis. Oh my gosh! And so they're amazing couple. Our house sold in 6 days in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, that. In the middle of all this stuff, we'll make sure I'm saying the right word. But 6 days, and so while people are losing their jobs, while people, all this is going on,
to solid buyers,
to about to close on it, and so we're givers. So God's protecting us. God's watching over us, and we've been praying not only for our realtors, but praying for the buyer and all that, and continuing to give, and so God's blessing us. So don't tell me giving doesn't make a difference.
Absolutely.
Because as you give, it's not only showing that you trust God, but it's showing God, that He can trust you. And so this is what I believe that Adam and Eve was trying to instill in their kids. They're not kids; they were grown men. They had to be in order to do what they did. They had to be responsible, and so to be a farmer and to be a shepherd and stuff. And so they were instilling this in their kids. But just like anybody, Cain just didn't get it. He just didn't get it. And so he was upset. He was jealous probably of his brother because, if they were twins, Abel was maybe just a little younger than him, and I don't care if you're twins or not, you still rub it in the face of the one that came out 3 minutes after you, and so, maybe he was jealous, maybe he was ticked off with God, or was it something deeper? Because look in verse 6, this is so interesting. Verse 6 says, "Why are you so angry?" The Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected?" And I find that interesting because this is an echo from years ago when God asked Cain's father, Adam, in the garden, "Where are you?" Just like with Adam, it wasn't a case of geographical location. God wasn't stupid. He knew where he was. Just like that, with this, when he's asking, "Why are you so angry?" God knew. But it was a matter of self-examination.
Right.
And so he did it to his father. He's doing it to his son now. And so, why are you so angry? I want you to look inside yourself. Not why are you mad at me, because you're not mad at me, but why are you mad at yourself? And so he's trying to get Cain to realize that something else is going on here. Right. And if we'll get to that point, because a lot of times we'll do that, we tip God, or we don't do what we're supposed to. We go against the Word, and we're shaking our fists at God and saying, why didn't you make this happen? And why didn't you, why has everybody else got their stimulus check? So, all these different things, and we're getting angry at God. And God's really looking down and said, why are you angry at yourself?
Right, right.
Let's look internal. Let's see what the problem is
exactly
inside. And so, you got anything to say on that?
It goes back to that same comment I said previously. When you give without the right heart, you open the door for all these things, because you think of, I go back to other instances in life, and if I do something and it was not with the right, and I'm not even talking about giving, I'm talking generally speaking.
Just in anything.
Anything, you know, you give to something, you go give somebody a ride, you do a job for somebody, whatever the case is, and you got a bad attitude about it, or you don't have, you're just dry about it, you're just not joyful about it, or whatever the case is. It never fails when I think back on that thing, I just have a sour taste in my mouth about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why do I, you know, But if I purpose in myself, even on a day when I wake up and it's like, man, this day's just going sideways from the time I put my feet down, you know, whether it's arguing with the wife or the kids, you know, wreaking havoc, I'm going to reset this and we're going to have a good day and we're going to have a successful day and things are going to go well. And I look back on the day and, you know, babe, I'm sorry, I love you. Kids, you're going to get a spanking, go to bed, whatever the case may be. And
Just don't mix those up.
Well, maybe not.
Okay,
but
PG.
But you know, you can look back on the day and say, I purposed for this to be good, and it went well.
Yeah.
And you know, in giving, I think that is exactly the case. You know, I just echo my statement in reference to you've got to purpose it.
Yeah.
You can't just flippantly throw money in anything, towards anything.
Yeah.
In your daily life, you can't flippantly throw fuel in your tank and expect it. You got to figure, you know, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You know, it's going to last me this much time. Because if you put $1 in today and $5 tomorrow, and 2 weeks from now another $20, you're probably going to run out of gas sometime.
Well, what's the old saying? Nobody plans to fail; they just fail
to plan.
Fail to plan.
Right.
And so, but let's get back verse 7 through 8. We see that the rules never change, and let's understand that from the garden till today, the rules never change. And unfortunately, society has gotten to the place where they think God needs to change His mind. You know, right. I said this, on so many days. Like God looked down one day and says, "Oh, I didn't mean that."
Right.
You know, we can soften, you know, that one up. And so I said this a while back of one message. I was just repeating something I saw on Facebook or something. But we used to say, "What must I do to be saved?" But now these days we've gotten to the point of how much can I do and stay saved? You know, and so. You know, it's pushing the line. It's seeing how close we can get, and God be okay with it. And so, but the rules have never changed. And so in verse 7 and 8, we see God like a parent having to repeat Himself. Come on, have you been there?
Yeah.
You repeat yourself. And it says, you will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and be its master. Right. I mean, this is right along the lines of probably the conversation him and Adam had at the very beginning.
Absolutely.
You know, he might not have said those exact words, but he basically laid out the rules. Don't touch the tree. In other words, I need you to obey me if you accept what is to do was right. But if you eat of the fruit, you're going to die. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Now he's talking about sin crouching at the door. We have a snake on the tree waiting to pounce. And so this is, again, just God having to repeat Himself like a parent to a bunch of kids. And so we don't know how old Adam and Eve were, but I'm sure God was, if He had any, pulling His hair out at this time. Would y'all listen?
It makes me think of generational curses.
Yeah.
And we've done our best to stand our ground and pray for our children. I know my parents did for myself. But, you know, there's things that we as individuals have weaknesses and we pass them on to our kids whether we want to or not. And here's a perfect example of it.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, what?
What's a perfect example?
Yeah.
The scripture there where you know exactly
true.
what you're talking about, where you know Adam dealt with it, and it's probably the similar conversation that God had with him.
And
then here you go.
Here's the thing, though, with today's society, the people, church, whatever, we kind of wonder, okay, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you got to think back generations. So maybe it came from my dad's dad or this or that. There was no confusion of where it came from. It was like there was nobody else. And so Adam and Eve must have been like, I screwed up. I passed this on. Because prior to the sin, there was nothing. Mm-hmm. There was no curses. Everything was handed to them.
Right.
I mean, talk about, I don't want to say spoiled brats, but, really they got everything handed to them. Mm-hmm. And to the point of when they were kicked out, now they had to work for everything that they needed to have. And so, but God's laying down the rules. And so in verse 8, it goes on and says, one day Cain suggested to his brother, let's go out into the fields. And while they were there in the field, Cain attacked his brother, Abel, and he killed him. So Cain is consumed by insecurity, jealousy, bitterness, maybe some embarrassment. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, God says, sorry, don't like what you did there. Right. Don't like the offering, don't like your heart. However it came down in front of his whole family. Mm-hmm. Embarrassment, also some guilt because he knew he did. Come on. Right. He knew he did wrong. Just like any of us. We know when we don't give it our best, mm-hmm. when we don't give it all we have. And so he takes Abel out in the field and he kills him. And this is what I find interesting in verse 11. Well, let me back up, verse 10. But the Lord said, what have you done? Again, God knows. He's just, wanting an answer. He said, listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now here's the interesting part. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground, mm-hmm. which has swallowed your brother's blood. No longer will the ground yield good crops for you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you will be homeless wanderer on the earth. So here we have where the curse got worse. Mm-hmm. Because when Adam sinned, it wasn't God cursed him, but he cursed the ground. Right. Eve got child pain births. Satan got his arms, or the snake got his arms removed. Mm-hmm. Adam, his ground was cursed. And so it was going to take effort to get what he needed out of it. Now his son has made the curse worse mm-hmm. by God saying, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you won't produce anything out of it. And I think this is a great example of how we take things too far. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about a minute ago, generational curses. Mm-hmm. And whether whoever down the road in your family tried and tried and tried, maybe they succeeded to get, cut it off for themselves. But we're working hard to get rid of it, but we don't, and we just give into it, and we make the curse worse. Right. And so, I don't know, that's what I see when I read this, that he's just making it worse. And then, man, all this is such an echo from the last chapter, because now, once again, the blame game starts. Mm-hmm. And it goes into this. It says, Cain, in verse 13, Cain replied to the Lord, my punishment is too great for me to bear. Mm-hmm. You have banished me from the land and from your presence. Notice what he's saying here. You mm-hmm. have banished me from the land. You have banished me from your presence. You have made me a homeless wanderer. You. Blame game.
Sounds like a lot of people today.
Yeah, it does. Well, it's echoing from the garden again. Mm-hmm. That's the woman you gave me. Mm-hmm. It's like some people today. Well, if that woman wouldn't have tricked me into marrying her. It's like, no, you asked her, know? And so, but here it's all your fault, your fault, your fault. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of people are outside of the church when they don't want to come and be a part. Of course, we can't right now, but, and just in general, people don't want to come in God's presence. They don't want to come to church. They don't want to come, and they blame God. Right. When really it's by their own actions mm-hmm. that they decided to do whatever they're doing that makes them feel inadequate, that makes them feel guilty. Right. To say, I can't come in your presence because of my guilt, but we're shaking our hands saying it's your fault. Right. It's all your fault. So
very unfortunate.
Yes. Verse 15 and 16. And the Lord replied, "Not for I." No, I'm sorry. The Lord replied, "No, for I will give a sevenfold punishment," because he was scared someone was going to kill him. They're going to find me. They're going to kill me. The Lord replied, "No, for I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. What this mark was, we have no idea. We don't know if it was a spiritual type thing, or a spiritual hedge of protection. We don't know if it was an actual Harry Potter lightning bolt. We don't know. We have some kind of birthmark. We don't know what it is. The Bible is not explicit about it. People have gone to the lengths, and I think it's such a sickening teaching. But people have taught that God made His skin dark, and that's why we have darker people. And that's that is such a wrong teaching. That is so racist and sickening that anybody would even teach that. But we don't know what the mark was. So Cain left the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, which is translated into wanderer, wandering, east of Eden. So he went away over there. And so in the end, just like he did for Adam and Eve, because I want to point this out, God still protected Cain.
Right. He still gave him an alternative.
Yeah. He was still there for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is great about God, is even people that thumb their nose at him and say, I don't want to be a Christian. I don't want to answer to you. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. He still loves you. And that's how he was with Cain. He says, I still love you. Enough that I'm going to protect you.
Right.
And I just think that's amazing. Even though he still had to walk through the consequences of his actions. Because he didn't remove the curse.
Right.
The curse got worse. And he still had it there. But he said, no one will kill you. Even though he probably would have died from starvation or some other means of his life, but he said, "I love you enough that no one will kill you because of this." So I just think that's amazing that they would do that, or that he would do that. And so the next few verses, 17 through 24, it's kind of a rundown of a genealogy of the family of Cain, the descendants of Cain. It is taught that because of Cain's actions, and as we talk about generational curses, monkey see, monkey do, you do what you're taught, that Cain's lineage would have been a bunch of sinners, a bunch of heathens, bad people. And so we go through this of this one begot this one. We have Cain and different people here. We get to Lamech. It says that he married two women. The first one was named Adah, and the other was Zillah. Probably pronouncing these totally wrong, but they're not alive to correct me. But one gave birth to Jabal, which was the first of those who raised livestock and live in tents. Now, I thought this was interesting because in this list, we go down Cain's family and we see a bunch of firsts. There was the first, Jabal was the first to raise livestock and live in tents. Jabal was the first to play the harp and the flute. Tubal Cain became an expert in forging tools and bronze iron. It doesn't say he was the first, which means he was probably taught by his dad or somebody, but he became an expert at it. And so we see all this happening, but then we come down a little bit towards the end of those verses. Let me find it here. It says in verse 23, one day Lamech said to his wives, Adel and Zillah, hear my voice, listen to me, you wives of Lamech. I like that. Next time I go talk to my wife, I said, listen to me, you wife of Corey. I just think that's amazing. But he says this, I have killed a man who attacked me, a young man who wounded me. If someone kills Cain is punished 7 times, then the one who kills me will be punished 77 times.
Wow.
He was gloating over his sin. He was just being proud of it. And so here we have an ongoing of a murderer,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call that? A polygamist,
Mm-hmm.
where he has more than one
More
wife.
than one wife, right?
And so I was thinking plagiarism, but no, that's something else. And so he's gloating in his sin, and so you can see how it's carried on down, the sins of the father continuing through the family. But what I find interesting here at the end, and we'll let y'all go here in a second, the last part, Adam had sexual relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to another son. She named him Seth, for she said, God has granted me another son in place of Abel. Okay, Abel was killed by Cain, so God blessed her with another son. Now look at this, verse 26. When Seth grew up, he had a son and named him Enosh. And at that time, people first began to worship the Lord by name. And so here we have a new generation coming in.
Right.
Seth and his family coming in. Now y'all might be thinking, okay, I know I'm not that good at math, but Cain, Abel, Seth. That's 3 boys.
Mm-hmm.
Seth had a son. Where did he come from? So this shows us that they had many children. Adam and Eve had many children. We have to remember that Adam lived to be 900 and something years old, 923, 930 years old. And so he didn't have Seth till he was 130. Come on. 130. I won't go any further than that because we already messed things up a while ago with one comment. And so, but at 130, he had Seth. And so if you think about it, there are some teachers that I don't know how they got to this number, but they think that Adam and Eve was in the garden for 7 years. Adam lived to be 900 and something years. So if they had a kid every 7 years, that would have gave them 56 kids, okay, during that time.
Wow.
And so there was a bunch of kids rolling around here that grew up. And, of course, God's command in the beginning was be fruitful and multiply.
Right.
And so it wasn't a sin that they go hook up with Cousin Ellie, or their sister, or, whatever the case may be. And so this is just the way it was back then. There was a pure bloodline, and so people lived longer. There wasn't disease. Some people say that it was after the flood, when the floods came and stuff, it allowed certain things from the atmosphere down that started lessening the life of people. There's a bunch of different theories and stuff. But so Seth married one of his relatives, of course, to start a new generation that, as we see here, were the first to begin to worship the Lord by name. And so I just think that's amazing that...
Pure lineage.
Yeah. I mean, talk about picking up the baton
Mm-hmm.
and running with it, because Cain just kind of screwed things up,
Mm-hmm.
Started going in a whole different direction. And yeah, Adam and Eve weren't perfect, but who is these days,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's up to us to pick up the baton and run with it and make sure that God's plan is fulfilled.
Absolutely.
And so I just think that's amazing. And as far as these, I read a minute ago, these people that they were the first doing this, the first doing that, and you might think, well, what's so great about that? They were evil people. God gives everybody talents and abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to us whether we're not going to use them for His glory or not.
Right.
And so whatever's in you, whatever God placed in you, know that He put it there, and He intends for you to use it for His glory.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took Seth rising up and saying, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do things the way they should be done.
Right.
And God moved on that. And
Make that choice and walk with it.
Yeah, definitely. And so I just think this is an amazing chapter, chapter 4. It's about learning how to give. Oh my gosh, it's about learning to give what you've got. It's about giving the best of what you have in your life, in your finances, in your marriage, in every single area of your life. We need to make sure that we're giving the best,
Right.
the best, the best, the best. And God will respond to that because that's what He wants. He wants us to give the best. Do you have any closing remarks?
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, I do kind of have a closing thought. I think
Okay.
that many times after researching this chapter and looking over it, as I took the time this afternoon and was thinking about it, we as individuals can fall into both of those roles of Cain and Abel. And there's seasons in our life where we're grateful and we purposely give and we purposely live life and we purposely make right choices. And then there's seasons in our life where we become laxed. And we see that through the world and the nation and all these different seasons that we go through. And through these shakings that are going on, like we're experiencing right now, we see a lot more people turn back to the Lord and begin to live a purpose-driven life and begin to live a purpose-giving life, you know. And when you choose to be the right brother there, if you will, and live as Abel lived, to give, you know, and then his younger brother that came a long way later, and you worship the Lord and you choose to do that, your life is not easy, but so much easier than the other way. And you can step back and you can look, and as you age, you can see the generations behind you and the many people like yourself that have come to you and said, man, you spoke into my life and you made these changes and you caused me to do this, and I experience it too as I get older. And you step back and you say, man, you know, what if I had lived the other way and I wasn't able to speak into these people's life, or I wasn't able to be an example to these individuals, or, you know, I didn't help them make that change, what would have happened? It just kind of put something in me and challenged me, because we all live both sides, you know, but limit that one side to a few hours or a day, you know, and flip back to the other side. Because there's times when we're disappointed, and there's times when we're frustrated, and there's times when we're just flat out mad. But at the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow, you can make that choice. You know.
That's right. That's right. And what I love about the end there is God rose somebody up. And even Eve realized it. She said, you have replaced Abel. In other words, you gave us what we needed to continue on. And so because of somebody's bad choices, and then God rose up who he needed to carry on the mission. And so I just think that's amazing. And we should pray every day, God, enable me, help me be that person to carry this on.
Absolutely.
Help me be the Seth. You know, help me be the one to pick this up and continue it on through these hard times, through these unknown times, you know, uncertain times, whatever you want to call it. Help me be that one that can pick up the baton, pick up the cross, whatever you want to say, and go forward.
Absolutely.
And so I hope this encouraged you. I hope it inspired you in different areas and different ways of your life. We got some great people also coming the rest of this month. We got Pastor Terry Ray is coming next Wednesday. He's going to be here sitting with me talking. I'm trying to get different people involved in this, and especially during this time when some churches don't have a Wednesday night thing. And so I'm looking into different people. So Pastor Terry Ray is going to be with us. Reverend William Stewart's going to be with us at the end of this month. And then a little ways into May, because he's not available till May 20th, but Pastor James French from Revive Church is going to be with us also. And so we're going to have a great time. I'm sure Brother Johnny Ray is going to be back with us. I'm sure Pastor Melissa is going to jump back in. And so we're just going to mix it up here and there. I just love having these discussions, different aspects, different viewpoints and revelations and insight on these chapters. And so we might have to skip over a couple chapters because some of them are a bunch of begats and stuff in Genesis. But other than that, I think it's just a wealth of information, revelation and insight. And that's what we're here to do. We're just in search of the truth. And so thank y'all for joining us. I want to remind you one more time, At the bottom of the screen, you'll see the text to give number. If you need to give here today, or Sunday, or whenever God puts it on your heart, or when it's time for you to give your tithes, and we just want to make that available to you. So thank you. Join us this Sunday. We're continuing in our series, Behind Closed Doors, and we're going to have another powerful, anointed service right from your living room, right on your couch, Captain Crunch and all, man. We're just going to have a good time. And so we'll see you then at 11 o'clock, and we're going to have a great time in the Lord. Thank you. God bless you. Ruben, thank you, sir. Fist bump it. Love you, brother. We will see y'all next time. Good night.
Good night.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Man, we pray that this message was a blessing to you. We pray that it did something inside of you, encouraged you, and inspired you for greatness in the things of God. If you're ever in the Corpus Christi area, come check us out at the EWC. We're located at 6801 Weber Road. And if you feel like God is calling you to be a blessing to this ministry, go on our website, theexchangewc.org. There'll be some instructions on there to help you out. Otherwise, we love that you joined us. We'll see you next time right here at the EWC.